My name is Aviv Friedman, and I'm going to be lecturing you tonight about one of the greatest players of the game. I think that he's somewhat, I wouldn't say unrecognized or underestimated, but somehow when I grew up, I knew many games, of course, of Morphy, and we'll see something by Morphy today, and all the legends of chess, Lasker, Rubinstein, Capablanca, and before them, there was a European player by the name of Adolf Anderssen. How many of you have heard of him before? Probably some of you. All of you. Okay. Maybe you'll be disappointed because maybe you recognize the games that I'm about to show you. But you may recognize one, but probably not all three. And he was, I think, the best player in Europe. And at one point when Paul Morphy was so good in the United States, he was beating everybody, not only in simul's and in blindfolds and exhibitions, but also in regular matches over the board. They decided that he might, play him, and well, it was a little unpleasant what happened there, but to Adolf Anderssen. But you will see an example of that today. So you'll see 2 wins by Anderssen and 1 very bad loss. This is one of his famous games, and it was very well known in the chess world as the evergreen game. Anybody saw it before? Some of you saw it before, really? Okay. But most of the class didn't see it. Should I skip to something else, or should we still see it? Still see it? Okay. All right, so he is playing, the game is Anderssen, and his opponent is Dufrance. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop C4, bishop C5. Of course, during the 19th century, the Romantic era, this was just almost a tabia position, like a normal position. You couldn't see Ruy Lopez, hardly. You couldn't see other things. You could see it, but I mean, this was definitely the dominant structure and opening. And of course, very typical to someone like Anderssen, who was an extremely aggressive player, B4 and the Evans Gambit. Okay, so he accepts, C3. Again, a very typical move of the Gambit. The idea is to quickly control the center. Bishop A5. Okay, nowadays we know that there are other moves, like for example, bishop c5, bishop e7 are very well known, but this is also acceptable. Pawn to d4, takes, castles. Again, a very main position in the Evans Gambit has arisen, and here black can make several choices. I have to tell you that initially when I saw the move back when, I thought it was a bad move, but then with time I realized it can't be that bad because later on Kasparov played it, so there's nothing, because Kasparov doesn't play bad stuff, never, ever. So, not even when he doesn't intend to or he doesn't intend to. So d3, a kind of a strange move. Okay, nowadays most arguments are about the move knight ge7 is the main line, and white tried different things like knight g5, for example, and rook e1, all kinds of c takes d4, of course, the main move. So in any event, we're not here to talk about the theory, but rather enjoy Anderssen's performance. You will see that the game is hardly without mistakes, even for white. But it's just a very, very impressive game. There's no way you can see this game and not be left with a wowing sensation. So, of course, white can take the pawn, but then by taking the pawn back, his pawn structure is very gloomy, isolated pawn, and black is just going to continue developing. So white decides to try to go for more. The heck with the pawn on d3 is not going anywhere. Let's try to attack the pawn on f7. And okay, queen f6, very, very reasonable. Defending the pawn in a normal way. He doesn't want to go to e7 because he wants to put the knight there. Especially in view of that monster bishop on c1 visiting the a3 square. So white has to continue the initiative, and he does. e5. Of course, it is very inadvisable to take with the knight on e5. I'm sure I don't have to convince you of that. That all black needs, like a hole in the head, is that they open e file when the rook is going to come from f1 to e1, and that's going to spell disaster. So, queen to g6. Okay, queen f5 is another move, but queen g6 is very legitimate. Okay, and rook e1. If I remember correctly, in the Kasparov game, somebody played bishop a3. I forget who it was who played Kasparov, but that's not our game for today anyways. So bishop a3 was tried. Here he tries rook to e1. Knight ge7, very reasonable. And now bishop a3. So in this position, of course, white is claiming some initiative for the sacrifice material. Two very agile bishops on very important diagonal, crisscrossing f7 and e7. And the pawn on d3, I guess it's as good as gone. At some point, it's going to be captured. So black is still in no danger, and he played the move b5. That was a very, very bad move, of course. Dufresne probably thought to himself, well, if I'm going to castle, I might face an attack, maybe like rook e3, like for example after castles, rook e3 and bishop takes d3, attacking the queen, and the rook might swing later on in this direction with a knight g5 or something. He must have been really afraid against someone at the level of Anderson. But in retrospect, when you look at it with analysis, there was not that much to fear. Black would be really okay after either castles or d5. The position is very tenable. Black definitely should not, but he decided to be aggressive, counter-aggressive, and he said, okay, fire with fire. So b5. Now the idea, of course, if bishop takes b5, rook b8, and the pin is very annoying. So he simply took with the queen, decided to play rook b8. That was the idea of the pawn sacrifice. He opened the file for his rook, and now the rook is attacking the queen. The queen has to go to someplace a bit clumsy. a4, not in the center, not in the middle of the game, in the arena. And in this position, black played bishop to b6. Of course, there were other moves. For example, bishop to b7 looks like a really appetizing move. The bishop has to be good on the long diagonal, and eventually, of course, it gets there. But I'm assuming that the thought was if bishop to b7, white is going to lift his rook again to e3 with the double purpose of, well, first regaining the pawn, especially in anticipation of, at some point, black castling, and the rook can always be available for a slide along the third rank. Black is trying to prevent it by taking away the e3 square from that rook. Okay, so far reasonable. Knight to d2, not the only move, but clearly an acceptable one, definitely not a terrible one. And in this position, black definitely should do something like castles, but he decided to play bishop to b7. And now things are becoming more and more dangerous for him. The more you leave your king in the center, the worse off you will get. Knight e4. When you look at the position, even when you don't look for concrete threats, you can already tell that white is enjoying the game a lot more than black. All his pieces are working. Not only they are developed, because blacks are also developed, but they are in very, very harmonious attacking positions. They really are working together. The queen is the one piece that right now may not be the most impressive, but all the rest are doing something very productive. Now again, black needs to be a little cautious here, because with this amassment of pieces, you have to do something. And he played queen f5. That was, in my opinion, a real, very suspicious move. Really, really a suspicious move. Again, castling would not have been that bad, even though knight g5 is a bit annoying, or bishop takes d3 could be annoying. He probably really was afraid of the idea of bishop takes pawn, shifting the bishop, attacking the queen indirectly with the knight check threatened. And then if you figured the queen is going to have to travel and travel, but the queen could always go to e6 and then stay safe there. Here, he could always go out when the bishop moves. Queen f5 was not a good move here. Now it was white to move, and in this position, white decided to play the move bishop takes d3, which is reasonable, queen h5. And there are really, really lots of opportunities here. In the game, he played knight f6 check. Okay, this was what we call, it's a move for the crowd. Okay, if he didn't play this move, funny enough, this game may never have made it to the anthology of famous combinations and really amazing games. He could have played the more prosaic knight to g3, queen h6, bishop c1. The queen is being harassed. Queen e6, bishop c4. Notice that the queen is getting no respite. And after this, you have to play knight d5. Why? Because queen g6, the queen is lost. Knight to h4. Notice that the queen just keeps moving and moving. Now it has exactly one move without being captured, but it's still going to be captured. After here, bishop f7. I know lateral moves sometimes are hard to see, but in this case, you'll notice that the queen on a4 is hitting the queen on g4, and the queen is lost. So he would have to do something like knight d5 in this position, after which knight g5, queen g4, rook e4. Queen g4 was the only move to try to prevent the obvious bishop takes knight, because now the queen would take this queen. Now, of course, there's no check, but he plays rook e4, and black is really, really unhappy here. So, of course, if this could have been a very boring way to end the game. And like I said, it would just never make the famous books. Instead, he plays knight f6, and this move is completely spoiling the advantage. It looks like it's a winner, but it's not. It's really a dubious mistake. So, okay, of course, it's a fork of a king and queen, so you must take, and he took back. For a moment, it looks really scary. There's multiple attacks on e7, and there's like a pin here, and all the pieces are working fantastic. But so far, black is answering calmly. Rook g8, the best move. Answering attack with an attack. Now the g2 square looks very, very vulnerable, and black is really doing okay. White plays, again, another preparatory move. The last reserve is coming into action. Everything else is working. The rook, the knight, the bishops, and of course he needs the other rook on d1. Very important move. And now black goes wrong. This is where black goes wrong. He looked at the position, calculated, saw no immediate mate, no obvious mate, and decided to go for queen takes f3. Of course, that is a bad move. What should he have done instead? By the way, you'll see that it's quite hidden why this is a bad move. What should he have done instead? Well, for example, the move queen h3, according to analysts and I think that engines as well, would have been completely safe for black. He is threatening mate, and very importantly, the queen dually is also protecting the pawn on d7. Some of you might say, what is there to protect the pawn on d7? It's not even attacked once. But if you see the continuation in the game, you will definitely understand. So queen h3, and the game is still balanced, but instead he decides, like I said, to take the knight on f3. And thanks to this move, now the game gets its glory. Now it's white's turn. He's about to face checkmate in one move, but it shows you again that the right to move, when you have the initiative, you're calling the shots first. Rook takes e7. Okay, I guess that this is the kind of move that black and white should have analyzed like every move. It was in the air. There's a check, the rook is attacking a piece. It looks like something that needs to be considered continuously. All right, so in this position he took it, and okay, it wouldn't really matter, because if he would have moved, then that crazy rook keeps taking stuff. Rook takes d7 this time, and again, of course, if you take, I'm just going to play bishop at f5 check with double check with the mate. And if you move, let's say, where can you move to? If you go, let's say you move here, then white again has a brilliancy, a very, very beautiful move here, and that is rook to d8 check. Again, it's always very impressive when you offer a piece for free it's a sacrifice without capturing anything, and even twice as much impressive when you are on the most defended square. d8 is defended 3 times, and somehow every capture is just bad news. Let's check it out. Well, it's very obvious that on rook takes, that queen all of a sudden is not exactly safe. We just take the queen and thank you very much. Alternatively, if you take with the knight, I'm going to play, I'm assuming it's queen d7 check, and on king takes, this looks like double check, only move, and checkmate. And I think that the last thing we need to check is what happens if he takes with a king. And then I think we are going to play, where are we going to play? Oh, we're going to play here. Bishop f5, check, king e7, or queen takes d1. Okay, we'll try that first. Here we play check, check. Okay, this is pretty simple, right? This is winning easily. So alternatively, oopsie, you can play queen takes d1 check, queen takes d1, knight d4, pawn g3. There is no way you can allow the rook to take on g2 check. There's no way, because then f2 everything is going to be attacked. So simply calmly defending the pawn, and after rook here, the bishop saves itself. Bishop f3. And now, I think queen e1 or queen d1. What is the solution here? Maybe queen d2, I think? Yeah. So, Very, very fancy. Going back, he took with the knight on e7 in this position. He simply took and probably thought to himself, well, okay, I accept your sacrifice. I'm ready to deliver checkmate. It looks terrible for white. It looks like white has nothing. How can he possibly defend? Even bishop f1 doesn't work because we still rook takes g2. So of course now comes a real thunder from, you can imagine where. Queen takes d7. Again, a shot out of the blue. Well, I can tell you that king f8, queen takes e7, or bishop e7 is not very appetizing. So he had to take. Bishop f5, double check. It looks like white is left with almost no material. However, the little that he has is more than enough. Now, of course, king c6. Looks like mate to me. So he tried here. Bishop to d7, check. And it doesn't matter if he goes to d8 or f8, it's the same punishment, and mate. So we saw that Anderson's style was really very, very brutal, very, very aggressive. And here he, again, got himself into the anthology of famous combinations. This is one of probably the most known games and very common in chess combination books. Now we will see a game that I will really, really doubt that you guys have seen. I'll be really surprised if you've seen it. And this is a game that he played against a guy by the name of Jacob Rosanes or something like that, yeah. And this guy is not very famous, the player with the white pieces. I think he was probably a master level player or something. They played the match, and the match was very lopsided. This is probably one of the more impressive games from that match. I think you're going to like it. So, e4, e5. This time, remember, Anderson is playing black. f4, again in the spirit of the era. If it's not bishop c4, bishop c5, and an Evans gambit or some other gambit, then it's the king's gambit. So takes, knight f3, pawn to g5. This is, by the way, a line that's the most popular today. Okay, it looks like a little bit of obscure chess. We are used to development and castling, and here there's nothing normal about the position. It's like both players seem to ruin their positionally, but black is saying, hey, I'm keeping the pawn, and you prove that you have something for it. So h4, g4, knight e5. So far very normal. Knight f6. Again, even you can see even games in the 21st century of very top grandmasters going like this. And he tried bishop c4. And that is a known mistake. This is a very, very bad decision. You can play, for example, d4 in the spirit of the game. Knight c3 is another possibility. And then after d6, you can just take the pawn. And again, it's a balanced position. But bishop to c4 is definitely a very bad move. Funny, huh? Because how can a minor piece towards the center, attacking the eternal weakness on f7, how can this be labeled a mistake? Well, Anderson is going to prove it. And it all starts with this move. Of course, the only and most aggressive way to stop the attack on f7. So he took bishop d6, simply developing the knight, the bishop and attacking the knight. Pawn to d4, defending the knight. Knight h5. White is saying, you know what, forget about it. You wanted to take the pawn on f4, that's mine. There's no way I'm giving it to you. Now that the g4 pawn is held by the bishop, the queen can take. Of course, the knight can take, but that's extremely dangerous after knight g3. And again, in this position, white has to make decisions. It's a really wild game. You have to say to yourself, what am I going to do? I mean, the knight is coming to g3. I have to do something about it. And it's hard to give a good advice, but I can tell you that what white did was not the solution. He played bishop to b5 check. He said, okay, my bishop was doing nothing on c4, and now I'm charging you some sort of a price. Either you're going to move your king, and that's probably by definition is going to be to a less safe square, or you're going to put a knight or a bishop on d7, and we're going to get to trade some pieces, which is lovely for me. Or in the case of c6, I'm just going to pick up material, win material. Well, You can imagine what Anderson chose, right? Of course, he offered material. C6. Very, very strong move. So white took, and black took back. Okay, white kept taking. Why not? And of course, now the queen is under attack and it's the discovered check. So he simply took it, took, and then you'd say to yourself, oh, maybe this was the idea. Maybe he wanted to give a pawn, and now play something like bishop to d7, and after bishop takes a8, queen takes a8, and for the sacrifice exchange, he has two agile bishops, and the white king position looks very precarious. Not Anderson. No way. He just moved his king. Almost like a slap in the face. Take my rook, be my guest. And by now you think to yourself, okay, if I don't take the rook, then what do I do? I came here, did all this, and I'm behind. My pieces are in disarray. Black is going to play knight g3. He's going to even play rook to b8, save the rook. So he took it. And of course, this was the intention. Black played knight g3. When you first see the game, if you didn't know that the players are very capable players, one a master and the other one being someone who might have been one of the top 5 in the world at the time, you think that this is Patzer A versus Patzer B, right? But not so. You'll see that there's some logic behind this madness. Now white knows that he is about to lose his rook back and with a really bad position to boot, and he decided to play the move rook h2. Well, the analysis said what happened after king here, knight takes h1, queen takes h1, pawn to g3, king to e1, queen e7, king to d1, bishop to g4 check, I'm going too fast, bishop f3, bishop takes, pawn takes, rook to g8. Look at the kings, look at all the white queen side. They are like spectators on the bleachers, right? Just doing nothing. In the meantime, black just wants to play g2 and g1, and the position is just miserable. After queen g2, queen takes h4. All the business is on one side, all the poor white pieces are there. Again, this is one of those cases that nominally speaking, the pieces exist, and the rook is worth 5, and the knight is worth 3, and the bishop is worth 3, but in actuality, white is just dying here. After king e2, queen h2 here, and guess what? The h-pawn is just leisurely going to go to h4, and then to h3, and white can just resign. By the time he tries to get his pieces out of jail, good luck. So, well, very unappetizing. And therefore he played the move rook h2. Just saying, okay, I'm not giving you my rook. Bishop f5. Again, developing in a very normal way. Now he is good and ready to take that bishop on a8. So the bishop moved to d5. Where else? King to g7. The rook is about to come to e8 with great force. And again, when you count the material, you say, wait a minute. The way I'm seeing it, white is up a whole rook. Black is down a full rook. And he's not about to get mated, but his king is just beyond saving. Knight to c3. Rook e8 check. King f2. Again, for a moment you think to yourself, Anderson must have been wrong. The king looks safe enough. I mean, he's not the proudest piece in the world, not the safest king we've ever seen, but he is safe. Just when you thought he was safe, Anderson comes up with another monstrous move. Queen b6, pinning the pawn. Knight a4, queen a6. And now, what to do? In this position, he played knight back to c3. He realized that his initial intention of playing c4 is going to be answered by a little queen sacrifice. Queen takes knight on a4. You might say, what? But the answer is coming. And then, after it takes, rook e2, here, check, here, checkmate. Again, a decoy of a queen to force checkmate. Okay, not very pleasant. So he went back, and now, oh, sorry, in this position. Bishop e5. Again, a great teaser. The bishop looks like, again, when you look at this move, you think to yourself, there is no way that the move like this can work. How can this work? Not only is he blocking his own e-file, but he's giving the bishop for free. Well, of course, there is, once again, a logic behind this move. It's not a gift. In the case that he takes it, queen comes to the free diagonal here, and mate is coming. Only move, check, and mate. So the bishop is immune. What should he have done? Well, it's tough to suggest a good move. Probably king g1 would have been the only other move. And then, of course, the queen comes back to b6 royally, simply intending to take the pawn on d4, after the rook coming back to try to clear some spot of escape for the king. Check. Queen here. A little switchback, and the pawn on h4 looks very, very delicious. On the very next move, the queen is going to come to h4, and I don't see any way to save from mate. So again, a very, very brutal display of an attack. Well, white tried something a little more naive. He played the move a4. His intention is he basically is saying, well, if I have to defend the pawn on d4, I'm going to play it with knight b5 without it being captured, so I prepare a defense for it. And white answers with queen f1. Just when he thought that everything is cool, of course, queen b6, knight b5, the game goes on forever. He comes up with this crazy move, queen to f1 check. Again, when you look at it again, you say, he must have lost his mind. He has no firepower and he's giving his queen. How is this going to end up? And well, the answer comes with queen f1, the only legal move. Bishop to d4 check. Now we see that the king is trapped completely. Bishop e3 is the only legal move left. Rook takes, and there's no way to stop mate in one. Whatever you do in this position, it's going to be checkmate in one move. In the game, I think he went king here, mate. Well, we can say one thing about Anderson, right? And he was not a chicken, right? Definitely a very brave player, giving pieces right and left as if he didn't know their value. But he really created masterpieces. But you know what they say, that in chess, live by the sword, die by the sword. Now we're going to see an example where the one player who is better than him is playing him. And that is Paul Morphy. So get ready to see this game. Again, it's a miniature, but it's a really, really cute one. Morphy is white. And again, this was played in 80... This is from the match in Paris, the game 2 from the match in 1858. So let's take a look at what happened in this game. e4, c5. We got to make a note. When Kasparov analyzed this game for ChessBase, he already stopped right here and said, think about it, 1858, and Anderson is already playing the Sicilian. It's quite impressive, because at that time, nobody knew much about the Sicilian. Everybody was playing e4, e5 was like an automatic response. And he is playing something which is relatively unconventional, very brave. Knight c6, here. Amazing how so many years ago they played something that is still very well known theory today. Takes, takes, e6. Taimanov Sicilian is known today because it was further developed by Grandmaster Taimanov. Knight b5, very viable option. Knight c3 is the other option. Pawn to d6, otherwise the knight goes to d6 with check. Bishop to f4. Again, a very legitimate move. You'll see it even at top-of-the-line games of today, in contemporary games. Other alternatives, of course, you can play c4 like Karpov. So bishop f4, e5, bishop e3. So the idea was, yes, the bishop lost the tempo, but the attack on d6 forced black to play the move e5, which leaves the d pawn as a backward pawn, and the d5 square is a very interesting outpost. If you think, well, that doesn't mean much, just keep seeing this game. So in this position, again, the normal idea is knight f6. Attacking the pawn on e4, white spends one more tempo to come here, and it's well known that after a6, black is doing okay. It's really a safe line. Black can play bishop e6, bishop e7. It's almost like a Sveshnikov variation, and it's all right. But true to his spirit and his style, he plays the move f5. I think that several years ago, American Grandmaster Shabalov, Alexander Shabalov, who is again someone who's very well known for very sacrificial games, and he doesn't mind getting into a really bad position as long as he can really muddy the water and try to complicate the game for his opponent, a result of playing in many open tournaments where you have to win a lot. I think he also played this move. I don't remember if he had success with it, but Anderson certainly did not. So Morphy simply plays knight c3, and Anderson continues with his idea, and he plays the move f4. Looks great, right? The bishop seems to retreat. So you think to yourself, okay, probably he calculated the following continuation. Bishop to d2, and after that a6. So we're looking, for example, at this. a6, knight a3, and then either b5 or knight f6, and black is doing quite okay. The bishop on d2 is a bit clumsy, the knights are a bit clumsy. But instead, he must have been really shocked, and it's a bit surprising because someone at his level and with his style of play should have anticipated the following move. Either he underestimated it or he just blundered it. Knight d5, game over. Out of the blue, right out of the opening, he is in real trouble. Now, of course, knight c7 is threatened. He tried to take, what else? Any other move, he's just gonna, if you try to save it, let's say king f7 or rook b8, I can just move my bishop, and the check on c7 is inevitable. Or if you moved your king, then I won't even bother because you won't be able to castle. So black's position is already on the brink, and he played here. Knight check, king f7. Okay, now it was Morphy's turn to play not the best move. Okay, he played queen f3 check, but of course he should have just taken. The point is that this is kind of an in-out visit. He takes the knight. If black plays something like, let's say, knight e7 to try to trade knights and trap this knight, then this knight just comes out. He's up an exchange, and there's really not much to be afraid of. Life is really fine. So, but of course, Morphy, much like Anderson, doesn't like just winning material and winning technically. He wants a brilliancy. So he played queen to f3 check, knight f6, bishop c4. Again, a brutal position. The black king looks on the critical list. But black has some resources as well. Believe me, he does. He almost had them too. Knight d4, super move. The best move. Anything passive here is just going to get spanked. The position is just too bad here for the black king. So he cannot afford to. He needs to play very aggressively. Now, of course, again, white has a dilemma. His queen is under attack and is about to be captured with check. Not to mention knight c2. If you even dream about taking this pawn, of course, you'll get forked. So, knight takes f6 check. And Anderson here plays the only move. Pawn to d5. Again, you look at the game, and if you didn't know the names of the players, you thought that might be some loser's chess game played by two very random players. Because it's like no value. You have to, every move, you have to kind of count what is the material situation. Like right now, believe it or not, well, peace speaking, it's even. Everything is the same. Material is just dead even right now. So instead, if he wouldn't have played d5, if he was to play king g6, then white has a very cute win. He will play check. Got to take the knight. Knight check. And black has to lose his queen because the king is kind of running out of moves here. Right after this, yeah, because if you go king e7, queen f7 looks like the big one. Right, just checkmate. So you would lose your queen. Of course, even if you win an exchange or something, the black king is just beyond hope. So what he does, like we said, he plays the very smart pawn to d5. Bishop takes d5 check. And now he thought to himself, well, that variation now has a big difference. There is no pawn on d6. So I can afford to play king g6, but he was wrong. The correct continuation was to sacrifice the queen now. He should have played, well, king e7 was even simpler, sorry. Here, 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 here. Of course, white is still doing okay, but black is not getting mated. After here, here. All right, maybe white is up a pawn, but with two bishops, and now, of course, I'm going to save my rook, maybe rook b8. The game goes on. There is no mate, you know, there's just not much. Okay, I have to say that according to Kasparov, in this position, after king e7, what a rude move. The king goes right in the middle of the board. Everything is hanging. After queen h5, threatening queen f7, he just takes, check, here, takes. Okay, a bit of a mess, but again, no mate. The black king is not getting mated. And of course, he has the possibility of also winning material. So again, a crazy, crazy game, just completely crazy. But poor Anderson thought that he can just play the move king g6. He thought to himself, what is the difference? Let's try to explain. He thought to himself, after queen h5, queen takes f6, king takes f6, knight e8, queen takes e8, and then at the end he's going to have bishop e4 check. Let me show you. Because, well, Morphy went into it, half of it. Takes, and now came a shock. If he would have played knight e8 check, queen takes, before it was just winning a queen when there was a d pawn. But now, of course, black has check, followed by rook takes queen. A very mean surprise. If you are the white player, you just lose. But of course, Morphy saw further, and I will show you what happened. After this, he played f takes e3. A very, very simple move. Again, we know that king safety is everything in chess. In this position, not only is white down a piece, but his knight on c7 is hanging, the pawn on c2 can be captured with check, followed by the rook on a1, but this glorious king on f6 is not going to see the light of day. It's all over. So, in the game he took on c2, had he played queen c7 to eliminate that annoying knight, then white would have played check, here, check, here, check, check, and now comes a funny move, a very calm, castling long, threatening the bishop moving with mate. Of course, the only way to try to stop it immediately is put the bishop on d6, and now white answers with bishop sacrifice of his own, bishop takes b7, followed by rook takes d6, and bishop takes on a8, everything is hanging. All of a sudden, it seems like black lost all his pieces. Of course, white is completely winning here. Totally winning. Just a complete crush. So, okay, what to do instead? He took on c2, king e2, and in this position, after thinking for a very long time, he resigned. He found no defense against rook f1 check. For example, let's see a line after here, rook f1 check, and I think that's it, right? After here. Doesn't look good. Just winning. What else he could have tried? Maybe queen c7 again. But I think that again, after rook f1, king here, rook here, king, I guess here, rook takes c7, and just winning. Let's say after this here. And black loses all his pieces. So after 17 moves, the great Anderson had to capitulate. So, yeah, Paul Morphy is really a monster, no question about that. Okay, guys, those were the games for today's games by the legend Adolf Anderson, and one lost by him. And next week we'll see another master of the past famous games. Thank you for your time.